Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information Man, please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Listening to Information Man, please make sure to subscribe to his channel. You are listening to Information is Power. Subscribe to his channel. Information is power. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel. Information is power. Information is power. You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel.
Tell the truth.
Information Man, please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
BS3 Network. Changing the way you watch TV. BS3 Network is now on Roku TV under BS3
You are now
TV.
tuned to
Download
BS3
today.
Network. Let's get it going, everybody. Peace to everybody in the chat room. What's up, everybody? Peace. Welcome to the Information Man Show, everybody. All right, everybody. Peace. Let me know if you can hear me by putting a 7 in the chat room. A 7 would be the preferred number these days. A 7. If you can hear me clearly. Once again, we're back on the grind here on the Information Man Show. I want to thank everybody in the chat room that's here. I've got my man, Ray Alexander, who once again, as always, sends me an email, brings up really good topics that we need to be concerned about as Black people. I said some weeks ago, after all of us heard about what was happening in Los Angeles, California with the LA City Council, and I screamed out and I said, do Black people want symbolism and personality, or do we want power? Because these other groups, such as the Spanish-speaking population in this country, as they are populating and increasing at large numbers, specifically here in California, in the Florida area, and throughout the country, the question is, do we want power? Because as much as we are going to get into this today, at the end of the day, we need to be vying for power. That means political power, social power, cultural power. We have to be unified. We have to work together. Now, I've got some incredible clips here. We have a gentleman who's a Hispanic gentleman, or a Latino or Spanish-speaking gentleman, who wrote a very profound book. And he went to Compton College in Compton, California, and he spoke very candidly about the relationship between Black and brown. And I'm here to tell you again, I'm not saying this because I want to be disrespectful or nasty, but simply there is not a Black and brown coalition. When brown people or people that are Spanish speaking come here and integrate here, they're looking for power. They're looking to benefit economically, socially for their people and their communities. They're doing exactly what we should be doing. Instead of getting up on these social media screaming at each other, we should be looking at what they're doing and saying, we got to be doing the same thing. Now, when you look at them as a group, some people will say, well, Latinos are not a group because they're made up of different people who speak Spanish, but they're from different parts of the world within Latin America or South America, Central America, and then we have Mexico, but they are distinct by their culture, their cultural beliefs, and their practices. And he's going to make that very clear. Puerto Ricans, don't get it twisted. Someone who's Puerto Rican, who's Cuban, Mexican, a Nicaraguan, any of these types of groups, they all may speak Spanish, but they all have a different cultural point of view. Another area that we're going to touch on today is that when you look at Black people who define themselves as Afro-Latina or Latino, oftentimes the darker Latinos that we would coin as Black, because Black people are all over the diaspora of the world, they are very poorly treated within the context of that culture and that place that they live, that they come from. And so this notion that there's a Black and brown coalition, or that there's a Black and brown unity, when some of these groups that come here already come out of a culture or a particular place that they were origins in, where they were treated the Black and brown, or they treated the Black people. Let me be correct here. They treated Black people poorly. You can look at Brazil. Let me show you something, and I'm going to bring Ray Alexander in just a moment. This right here, we're going to talk about this today. In Brazil is made up of about 88% and damn near 90% African Black people, because when the Portuguese engaged in the slave trade, ladies and gentlemen, when the Portuguese were involved in the slave trade, they were the first ones involved in the slave trade. And you had the French and the Europeans. And yes, you did have certain Arabs that got involved in it, but it was the Portuguese who began to go over to the continent of Africa, the western part of Africa. Now, let me keep it real with you. Black people, I know we like to talk about Egypt and the Moors and all that shit. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break news to you. We do not come from North Africa, or are we Egyptian? Those of us who recognize the triangular slave trade, we know for a fact that a lot of us come from the Western Hemisphere of Africa, not Egypt, not Morocco, not North Africa. Let's get out of the pyramid dream because we don't come from that region, yet we often focus on that region. Now, we know that the Portuguese took us from western part, because this has been documented, western part. And of course, we have those that are Aborigine that will say that we were already here in North America. Black people from all over the damn world, all over the globe. So whether you're here or there, it comes out to the same thing. We were mistreated. Portuguese brought black people over to what we call Brazil today. And then about 4 to 5% of us were moved out of South America, or what we call Brazil, a country in South America, moved to North America. Then there were black people that were dispersed to the Caribbean. And then there were those that were laid to stay there. But yet the face of Brazil is a face that will let you see a white Brazilian, or what we would call a Latino looking Brazilian, like you see right here. This is their council, the people that run the country. Do you see anybody black on there? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 white Brazilians. Maybe even more than that. You don't even see any black people, even though the country is made up of mostly black people who are disenfranchised. Now, what makes you think that if people who come from these kind of countries where they already treat black people who speak Portuguese or Spanish, they already treat them poorly, what makes you think that because they immigrate here or they migrate here for some that all of a sudden we got this unity, this black and brown coalition, when some of these folks come from these other places in the world and they bring their anti-black racism right into America, right on to us. This is why we're having some of the problems that we're having right now. This is why you can have the situation that you have in Los Angeles, California, because you also have people that are of the Spanish-speaking culture that come from Mexico who also have anti-black sentiments. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but certainly there's enough people that have come over here with those type of sentiments, even though we know that there are Mexicans in Mexico who have black blood in them, because you did have black slaves that were brought over to Mexico. Matter of fact, their independence was won by a black and Mexican general. But they still treat blacks different. Now, a few years ago, they designated and recognized the black Mexican. But it does not negate the fact that you have to look at how they are treated in those countries. And so it doesn't always translate to that people come over here from other countries and now they put us in this trick bag called people of color, as if we're unified. We got a rainbow coalition and all this other nonsense. There is no rainbow coalition, because you see what's happening in Los Angeles, California, with the way black people are being moved out and margined out. And you had the 3 council members and God knows how many more were in those chambers, hiding behind chambers. We just caught them because they're on audio, that are plotting to destroy us as a people. We got to keep that in mind in terms of political power. While we're arguing, you got Kanye West, who's running around. Man was worth $1 billion. He's running off at the mouth, and now his wealth is dwindling down. And you have to ask yourself this question: why is it that Kanye West and other groups of people can talk about black people like a dog, lose no money, lose no success, lose nothing? The minute that Kanye West talked about the Jewish community, you see what happened? He lost $2 billion. But what about all the anti-black talk that Kanye West engaged in for all these years as he rose to being a billionaire? He rose to being a billionaire while insulting black people constantly. But the minute he talked about other groups of people, he got cut loose. What does that show you, folks? That we have no friends, we have lots of enemies, and many people don't give a damn about when people talk about black people, even if it's black, successful black people, supposedly, or other groups of people. Right now, you've got Kevin D. Leon in LA who refuses to give up his seat, saying, "Recall me," and he's running around. I'm going to show you some footage from him talking to Travis Smiley. He's running around talking about he's so sorry to black people and how much he's done so much for black people. But yet he's plotting behind the scenes trying to come for black people. This is not isolated, ladies and gentlemen. So as we look at the world that we live in, which is America's becoming more browner, that browning of America has nothing to do with black people, which we get pushed to the margins. We have to understand, what is our relationship with Spanish speaking people? Is it on equal ground? Are we working together in solidarity? Do they even vote like us? When you look at the statistics, they don't even vote in the same fashion that black people vote. Now, primarily, a lot of us vote Democratic. But when you look at the numbers, their votes are scattered about. When you look at the numbers, when Barack Obama ran for president, there were a lot of Latinos that voted against Barack Obama for whatever their reasons are. So today we're going to get at it. We're going to try to make sense of some of this stuff. And we're going to bring on my man, Ray Alexander, and see what we can do to open up your mind and what have you. Now, this isn't about hating. This isn't about saying, hey, we're going to hate this group of people. I'm going to let the evidence speak for itself. We're going to let the information speak for itself. And then you have to make your own judgment, ladies and gentlemen, as to what's going on. So thank you again. Let's go over to Ray Alexander, shall we? Ray, I want you to unmute yourself, brother. All right, Ray. Welcome here, my brother. Doing fine. Thank you, Ray, for bringing this subject up to my man. You always pick, you're like my producer, man. You come up with incredible, sometimes stuff that I hadn't even thought about yet. But you come up with incredible topics that people can really get their teeth in. This is another controversial topic. And I'm going to say again, we're going to let the evidence and the information speak for itself. For those of you out there that are going to say, oh, you're hating. And if those of you who say, oh, you're whining, what is the solution? We're going to talk about solutions. We're going to play you some stuff that talks about solutions. But Ray, once again, lead us in this right now, brother. What is the significance of this situation that if America becomes more and more browner? And I got to be honest, the Spanish speaking population is doing exactly, Ray, what we as black people should be doing, but we're falling short here. But go right ahead, Ray. You've got the floor.
Well, that's exactly right. You're correct on saying that it's all about power. So Latin American Spanish-speaking people who have come to the United States legally and some undocumented or unauthorized are building population centers and build political power. And so California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida are basically power bases. And they have different values than us. The significant thing that you talked about earlier, they have come from places that have large black populations from their home. I mean, Cuba, you're talking about the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, Spanish-speaking Central America, and Spanish-speaking South America. The Spaniards enslaved blacks there, and there is a strong caste system where blacks are at the bottom of that caste. There's a saying in Spanish America, improve the race, meaning that if you're a light-skinned mestizo, would they identify themselves as a white Hispanic, don't marry a dark-skinned person. Don't, quote, mess up the race by having mixed or brown children. And this has been going on for a long time. This is centuries. There was a myth that there was, quote, no racism. It was a racial paradise in South America and Brazil. Not true. They were equally as racist. They did not have the laws, apartheid-style laws as they had in the United States, but their customs were so strong that they have blacks were at the bottom. Right now, Brazil is 51% African descent. The two people running today is the Brazilian election. The two people running are white Brazilians. And so in that whole country where you have the most slaves were taken to Brazil, primarily from Dahomey, the place where you had the Woman King movie.
Yes.
There were people who settled there. If you look at Henry Louis Gates' documentary on PBS called African Kingdoms, he goes there and speaks to the descendants of the Dahomey and a Brazilian who married into that. His remains are on the grounds on that same, where they have a compound in residence today. So this is not to alarm anyone or to get anybody upset. As you said, this is for us to be alerted that we need to be gaining political power. And the people that come here, the things that they said in Los Angeles, they're doing the same thing in Florida. Behind there, if you remember a few years ago when Michelle Obama, our first lady under President Barack Obama, there was a Mexican American, very popular TV show where one of the hosts of the shows called First Lady Michelle Obama said that she looked like someone from the Planet of the Apes. You recall that a few years back?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
these are the type of common things that they have said. You talking about the First Lady of the United States, and that's how you're referring to her? Now, he was dismissed, but this is some tragic stuff. So we cannot expect people. Now, when they had low numbers and they were out of power, they were
Yes.
trying to ally with us. But as soon as they got the numbers, they are doing the things in Los Angeles. And they were not content just to have the majority. They want absolute majority. There was a brother. And so even though, what's the sister name? The sister Karen Bass is running. Karen Bass, former husband, is Hispanic. Her children, or he's Mexican American.
Yes.
Her children are biracial, and all of her daughters married Mexican American men. They didn't marry
Yes.
black men. She's a nice woman, but she's not represent. If she wins, that'll be a nice win, but it will not stop the demographic changes in California, where black people are basically disempowered. The opportunities that they had 50 years ago have been squandered, even though they leaked out that tape, and there was a prominent black family in Los Angeles, originally from New Orleans. They are newspaper publishers, real estate developers, etc. The game is up. We need to ally, and you'll be discussing this, as you said earlier, the solution. We need to align ourselves for empowerment. And I think we're going to have a really interesting and powerful show today. And I appreciate that you're doing this show now.
Well, thank you. Let me say peace and love to Speak With Your Girl, Marcellus. She's been very supportive of my channel, telling a lot of her folks to come over here, subscribe, and follow the channel. So I want to thank you, my sister. All the sisters and brothers that are in the chat room. I think Key G gave me a super chat. Thank you for that super chat. And
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to
And let me
his
put
channel.
that on. Oh, and speaking with your girl, Marcel, she gave me a super chat as well. Facts: in any Spanish culture, Afro-Latinos are treated differently, less reported. Right. Now, let me go. Thank you for that super chat again. And let me go to
Thank you
Kitty.
for the super chat.
Let me go to Kitty G. If I can find, I think I missed somebody that sent me a super chat. And if I could find her original super chat that she sent me and put that on the screen, and now it's not letting me. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. Thank you for that super chat.
Thank you for the super
PD
chat.
Jink, thank you. She says, peace and blessing, Information Man, and peace and blessings to everybody. We got the Empress Goddess is in there. We got Deborah Guns. La Raza is here. Thank you. I Excels in the house. I Excels in the house, and I thought I modded you up. I'll mod you up when I get a chance. Ray Alexander, of course, is on board with us. RY, Miss PC is in the house. AC, what's going on? Nappy Yankees in the house, or Naps is in the house. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Saying hit the like. Yeah, hit the likes, everybody. Look, y'all can do this. Y'all can really get things jamming and going strong over here. You got cell phones in your hand. You can just simply, while watching the show, click over to your Twitter, drop it into your Twitter, drop it into your Facebook, wherever you have social media. You can drop it in there right now. You could do the same thing on your desktop and not miss anything. You can do the same thing on your handheld, tablets, your iPhones. So you can go ahead and do that right now while you still got me on live, if you can do that. If you are a content creator, go right ahead and drop that into your community tab. Tell people to come on over, because this is a very important stream, one of my most important of the year. And I really want to appreciate you all for being here. Let me see what else we got here. So we got Last Call in the house. We got Alan Christian in the house. As I said before, Ray's here, of course. Beverly Palmer's in the house. We got my man Frazier. Brother Frazier, who goes by the name of GA, is in the house. We've got Steven, we got my man Steve Gilmore YouTube channel in the house. I'm looking over here. Tiffany Jackson. This is for anybody that I might have missed on my other screen. Let me see. Mrs. B and fam is in the house. And if I missed anybody, don't take it personal. If I missed you and I see you, I will recognize you most definitely. We got my man Lions Den in the house. All right, we got Guy Nollywood Jr. in the house. Red Alert is in the house. And let me say peace to you. If I don't make out names correctly, I'll just say peace to you in the chat room. Peace, like this. And you'll know that I actually pointed you out. So, Ray, let me get back on topic here. I really appreciate everybody. Just want to acknowledge people. We got Tony D, who's coming in the house. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a very sensitive topic. It will make some people upset and think that, oh, you're hating. No, we're not hating. We're just going to use the information that is facts to back up our play. So, Ray, should I do this? Ray, let me play a little bit of, this is the book right here. Can you explain who this man is? He spoke at Compton College. I'm going to play, I clipped a little bit of him, especially of him I'm going to play, but explain who this gentleman is here, who wrote this book. And you guys are going to see the video on him soon. Go right ahead, Ray.
Okay, thank you. Let me go ahead. Are you referring to, let me look at the book. Give me just a second on that. If you can go ahead and.
I think his name is Nicholas C. Vaco. I'm going to play a little bit of what he had to say. I think he's Spanish speaking or Latino himself, and he has some very candid things to say.
Right, Nicholas C. Vaca. He's the author.
Vaca, yes.
The presumed alliance, the unspoken conflict between Latinos and Blacks, and what it means for America. He's a professor at the University of California at Berkeley, and he's just telling it like it is. The numbers have been gone. This has been happening for a long time. A lot of people didn't really listen to him on our end because we've been dreaming of this so-called Black and Brown coalition. And so that's who that is. And if you go ahead and get that squared away. I'm going to play
a little bit of him because I clipped a couple of things from him specifically. And this is the one we're going to go with right now. So hang on, everybody. Here we get ready to go. There he is right there.
Going to African Americans. So I looked at Miami. Now, the Latinos in Miami are Cuban Americans, not Mexican Americans for the most part. They're Cuban Americans, they're also Salvadorians, and they're also Nicaraguans. But in Miami, you had a situation where the African Americans had a long history of working and being part of that community. Along come the Cuban Americans, they develop a power structure, they develop an economic structure that effectively shuts out the African American community. And what's really interesting about it is the Cuban Americans really have very little interest in the African American plight. Statements have been made, they've been documented in the book, and it's pretty obvious that that's the case. Cuban Americans, at least the older generation, is still focused on Fidel Castro and Cuba. I mean, that's really what they're all about, that's what they care about, etc. Now, the difference between the difference between Los Angeles and Miami was that the African American population is not growing by leaps and bounds. By 2050, as I said, Latinos are going to represent something like 25% of the population. The African American population will only represent about 14%, a little bit more. So while things will remain stagnant for the African American population, the Latino population is going to continue to explode in numbers. After Miami, I thought I'd come back to California. And lo and behold, I decide Compton's going to be a good example, a good case study of what happens when Latinos come into a largely African American dominated city. And what is going to be the interaction between these two groups in this city, which frankly, as I said before, is ground zero. And I discovered that in doing the analysis that it's a real ongoing struggle. African Americans have not had the power so long that they felt compelled or willing to openly share this power with a new Latino population. I mean, keep in mind that one of the arguments that African Americans have made, and I think perhaps a legitimate argument, is that they have not had this power for that long. They have not had positions of in the city council or the school board long enough for them to say, look, we can now share it willingly with this newly arrived immigrant group or with this newly exploding population. So I explored 3 areas in Compton. One was the city council, the other one was the school district, and the third was employment.
Real quick, for the purpose of legal here. Warning. Federal law allows citizens to produce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyright, motion picture, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use, and it allows for the purpose of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody, which does not infringe of the copyright under 17 USC 107. Fair use. And I've got lots of goodies for you all out there, so don't leave this stream, ladies and gentlemen, because you'll be missing out.
And in each one of those, I discovered this constant struggle that's going on between the Latinos and the African Americans. In the area of municipal employment, the argument has been made by certain individuals in positions of authority that are African Americans, that African Americans are really entitled to these positions as a consequence of civil rights activity. And this is a really important issue. Latinos are not necessarily deserving of these, because if you go down Alondra Boulevard, I think that's what it is, or Artesia Boulevard, I think that's what it is also, you find that most of the employers are employing Latinos. And in the introduction to the book, I talk about this. An article written called Black versus Brown appeared in Atlantic magazine, in which the argument was that Latinos are being hired over African Americans by the general employers, and that really it represents one of the greatest affirmative action programs at the expense of African Americans. So this was the argument that was made here in Compton.
Facts. We should take our own dollars and do the same thing. Somebody said that in the chat room. That's facts.
Omar Bradley, who is no longer an active politician in Compton, argued that really Latinos aren't entitled to any kind of a position on the city council until they gain the kind of voting power that allows them to put their own into power. Essentially, the argument goes like this. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Yeah, they're here. Yeah, but a lot of them are illegal, or if they're not illegal, they're permanent residents. And if they're not permanent residents, they're U.S. citizens. And if they're U.S. citizens, they're not registered to vote. And if they're registered to vote, they don't vote in the numbers that they should. So until they can get their act together and really vote the way they're supposed to, become legalized, and have that ability, they're going to be shut out of the political power in Compton until they can change that. And the counter argument was, well, that may be the case in terms of political empowerment, but how about employment? Aren't we entitled as members of this community to have equal representation, or the kind of representation that is necessary in this area? The response from the African American community is basically, well, you know, that's something that we talked about before, and reality is that you guys can get employed outside of the municipal area. We can't, and therefore it seems only just that we maintain whatever power that we have here. I wanted then to balance the Compton situation or experience with one in Houston, where in Houston you had an African American mayor, a fellow by the name of Lee Brown, who was very inclusive. He included the Latinos in his programs. One of his closest political advisors was a Mexican American.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a cautionary tale. He's talking about a brother that was mayor in Houston, I believe, and that he had an inclusive administration where he put out the olive branch to the Spanish-speaking community, but it turned around to bite him in the back, and this is what he's going to say.
He created a committee to give him political advice, which was largely composed of Latinos. And
See?
so it was believed that he had successfully wooed the Latino population into his camp. 2001 mayoral election comes along and he's challenged by a fellow named Orlando Sanchez. Orlando Sanchez is a light-skinned, blue-eyed Cuban American who has been tagged by the existing Mexican American political power as anti-Latino, who ran hot and cold on the affirmative action program, who actually had some proposals, some pretty outrageous proposals as it related to immigrants and the like. Nevertheless, what he did was he played on the fact that Latinos had not had anybody in the position of mayor in modern times. And so what he did, he played on that. And he played on it by saying, well, look, even though I may have this conservative bent, I'm still one of yours. And it's time we had one of our own in power. He almost did it. He got 72% of the Latino vote in the mayoral election of 2001 in Houston. And he almost pulled it out. Now, the ironic thing about that is Latinos were now forming a coalition, not with African Americans who voted for Lee Brown, but they were forming it with conservative whites. Not unlike what happened with Han and the African American community.
You see what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen?
What Latinos were doing to African Americans. So I looked.
This is Exhibit A. Did you hear what he said? This is not a black man saying this is someone of their own culture who's saying, you would think that there would be this correlation because this black man, I think he was a mayor or getting ready to run for mayor. I'll let Ray explain more detail here. And he developed, I think he was mayor. He developed a coalition with Spanish speaking people. I say Spanish speaking people because that encompasses all that would fit that, because they are very diverse. You know, someone who's Mexican will say, hey, I'm not Puerto Rican. Don't call me Puerto Rican. I'm Mexican, right? So Spanish speaking people who he basically helped out and did things for, and then he thought they would have his back, and no, they ended up going along with somebody else. In this case, they unified with white society. This is Exhibit A. So this whole notion that immigration is a benefit for black people because these people are going to come in here and see themselves as people of color, since you've got all these damn politicians talking about we people of color and stuff like that. That somehow that we're going to be this melting pot, when we're not a melting pot. We're a solid bowl made up of many different people who have different cultures and four ways and Norways, and we don't understand each other, and we don't always have each other back, but we'll have the back of our own people. But here's another example of a black man putting out the olive branch, and they get anything in return for his efforts, because just because they called brown people and we're black people and they call us people of color doesn't mean that we all have the same politics and views and ideology, which is why we got to stop calling ourselves people of color. You can't put everybody in the same bag with you. Now, Ray, as I got another explosive clip from this man, what is your assessment on this as I bring you back upstairs with me right now, Ray? What is your assessment?
Well, you're speaking truth. That was Lee Brown, who was the former chief of police for the city of Houston, Texas, and he became mayor twice. Very good brother. The demographics of Houston have changed. The majority, I think blacks make up 15 to 20% of Houston. Hispanics or Latinos make up about 40%. So the point of the matter is that indeed Texas is pretty much a Latin American state. I'm sorry, so, right now, actually, Texas is 51% majority minority, 39% Hispanic, and 12% black. So 51% of the state is minority, but there's not any coalition to vote. It's run by conservative Republicans. The current Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, his wife, Cecilia Abbott, is Hispanic. She's Mexican American. So they are allying with the people because they want the rights, and also they're no longer considered brown in the state of Texas. They're considered white. So racially, Hispanics, and this may be, and that was one of the things that we talked about in the article, is that how supremacy will be maintained in the United States is by reclassifying certain people as white. So you'll have Middle Easterners reclassified, you'll have Mexican American reclassified, but the people who will continue to control the wealth and who will sponsor the politicians will be wealthy white people. And it'll be similar to the way it is in Latin America today, where you have a small white, primarily European elite that owns most of the businesses, and they run the country through business and through political power. You were going to make a statement on you.
Yeah, Ray. So these are very important things I want to have you guide us with right here from some of the articles that you sent me. This is the notion, ladies and gentlemen, that some people will say that, well, if you have brown people or Spanish people coming over into the country, that they will be on one accord with us as black people. That may not be true. States here, the demographic tie will overtake white supremacy, i.e. the belief that white people are superior, which they're not, and they should maintain political, social, and economic power over the other races. Now check this out. There's a notion that the browning of America will lead to the erosion of white supremacy, meaning white people who think they're supreme to us, but they're not supreme. I'm going to emphasize that. Then on top of that, another bulletin point here, that when white people are no longer the majority, that racism will somehow fade away. That's a myth.
Tell the truth.
Because you have people, as I laid out earlier in my presentation, who come from other countries in Latin America, Central America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, South America, who also treat darker skinned Latin or black Latin speaking people, Spanish speaking people that are black that live in these countries, born in those countries, they treat them poorly. In Brazil, they treat black people very poorly in Brazil, where they speak Portuguese and Spanish is their second language. So this notion that because people come from other countries, that it's going to somehow get rid of racism is not necessarily true, because there's an anti-black sentiment, not only in America, but globally, ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, recent census figures seem to validate a common assumption that the United States is burrowing towards becoming a rainbow nation around 2045, when white people are projected to become a minority. Let me go right here with this next one and I'll bring you back in, Ray. Okay. Researchers discovered that some 1.2 million Americans, ladies and gentlemen, who had identified as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origins a decade earlier had changed their race from some other race to white.
Tell the truth.
These are numbers. We're not making this up. This ain't no make believe. This isn't no fairy dust and fairy tales type stuff. No pixel dust or anything like that. This is real talk. Ray, touch on that. What is your thoughts about that?
Well, that's the strategy. When they were in Mexico, they considered themselves mestizo. That usually can mean that they're half indigenous and half white, or half descendants of Spaniards, or they are, and that's the majority of population of Mexico. So they have never considered themselves brown. They do have, as you said, they have a black population in Mexico. I think it's about 1 million or more there that they've just begun to recognize, and they're basically third-class citizens in Mexico. And this is how they have a Sambo culture in Mexico, where it is something that we need to understand, that they are, and they also do their enclaves. There's not any, just like other people, when they move into certain locations. You said this, you showed this in your, a few years ago, you had a video about the firebombing of people out of different parts of
Let me find that clip. Hang on for a minute. I have a news clipping that I want everybody to look at and And you can find, I want people to look this up. Let me take over the screen real quick, Ray.
Okay.
I want everybody in the chat room to not only take my word on this, but my man, the real Aaron Collins, he remembers when I did the video on this some years ago, when I first got on YouTube. Real Aaron Collins, he knows he lives in LA, originally from Chicago. Right here, Los Angeles Times, gang members. And I knew about this for a while too, Ray, because the Mexican mafia has had a green light on black people in Southern California for a very long time. The gang members sentenced to, they caught these gang members. They got 13 of them, but there were more. Gang members sentenced to 13 years in prison after firebombing attacks on black families. The apartments in the Ramona Gardens housing development. Anybody from Los Angeles, California, you know what I'm talking about right now. The Ramona Garden housing development were firebombed in 2014. That wasn't that long ago, actually, if you really think about it. Okay. And one of 8 members of a big hazardous street gang to be sentenced after pleading guilty to federal hate crime. This was in Los Angeles, California, where this had been going on. How many of you in the chat room even knew that back in 2014, you had black people in these housing development project areas that were being harassed by some of these Mexican gangs coming over from Mexico, or these gang members that were getting their marching orders from the Mexican mafia across the border, telling them we want that territory. We want that territory for drugs, to sell our drugs, to control it, because we see California as belonging to us. How many of you know about this story? Put a 7 in the chat room if you're aware of it. If you're not aware of it, put a 2 if you had no idea about what I just said, and a 7 if you knew about this story. Let's get back over to Ray Alexander immediately and let him continue what he was saying. Ray, let me see right here, brother, if you want to touch on anything else. So there it is. I put the article up. I hope people write that down and look that up.
In different areas like firebombing and just, intimidating people out of areas, a lot of the areas that were predominantly black, especially the projects, are now predominantly Latino. There was a brother named Kid Organic he's from Los Angeles. He talked about in middle school and high school how their violent fights were when a young man would try to talk to a Latino girl. There would be serious fights about that. There will be people, there will be a small number, but we need to recognize all of this, that these people are coming here. They have a different culture, and all of them, although they come from different regions, they have enough similarities as far as their Catholicism, their language. The foods are similar and different at the same time. They have some similarities. A lot of the code, and this is why, like on these construction sites, it's going to be primarily 80%, 90% Mexican Americans, but you're going to see some Salvadorans. You're going to see some people from Honduras. You're going to see some people from Guatemala. You're going to see a lot of it, because it's a language-based culture. And in Miami, the Cubans run everything, but they still subordinate the rest of the Hispanics. So I think that it's good for blacks to recognize that don't stay in a losing game. So that was they pretty much locked up Los Angeles right now. In the generations of blacks, all of those so-called black areas are no longer black. Compton is predominantly Mexican American or Latino. I think Watts is as well. South Central basically is. And so it's just a matter of time that they will be, maybe, what's her name? The sister who's the congressman. What we just talked about her.
Maxine Waters, you talking about? Maxine Waters?
She's running for mayor of Los Angeles. What's her name? Barbara something.
God, we just said her name a few minutes ago. You said her name. She's running for mayor. Karen Bass.
Karen Bass. That's correct. She may win, but it's not going to have an impact.
No.
Basically, she's going to have to do the bidding of the majority, and she married into Latino culture. And so that'll be good for her to have a nice pension to retire on, from Congress pension and a mayoral pension. But other than that, I think conscientious blacks need to understand that they need to be thinking about where to go where they can be empowered. And
Right.
this is over with. Remember from the movie Ray, when I don't know if Ray Charles actually said that, he probably did. What's the brother who played Ray and Ray Charles in the movie Ray? Jamie Foxx.
Yes.
He was saying that in the 50s, Ray said he moved, Ray Charles moved there because he didn't want his children to grow up in the South and seeing all of that. And they lived in, not Limerick Park, they lived in not Baldwin Hills, Viewpoint. Very beautiful. I got to actually see his home. They lived there, and it was a black upper middle class or upper class enclave in Los Angeles, one of the nicest areas in Los Angeles. So the point of the matter is that we need to be aware of what's happening and stop letting people gaslight us. And the gentleman, as he was speaking, he was just saying that the interests are different. And also you have Black Hispanics who, I guess, they are comfortable being subordinate. They identify as Hispanic more. They don't want to be Black American. So they would rather be a second class Black Hispanic, and that's fine if that's what they want. But we are the most empowered Black group in the U.S., in the world, and we need to be politically aware how we can readjust and strategize ourselves to position ourselves for the empowerment in the U.S., because we can still do well here, but it's not good for us to be in place where we're numerically weak,
Right.
and where there would be abuse, because they are coming from places where they are economically desperate, so they can undercut wages. They have not had political power, and they're culturally in line. There's not a big fight when someone from South America marries, who's considered a white South American, or this mestizo marries someone that's Mexican, or vice versa. But there's always an issue if he's Black, unless you're some superstar. Like the Black athletes, they can do that, but that's a small number.
Right.
So that's that whole concept of improve the race. There was a video, if you may have it, where they showed how they tried to eliminate the Black population out of South and Central America, and as far as bringing in white Europeans over a period of a century. That's how Uruguay is now predominantly white. That's how you have all these Southern Europeans in Brazil. And they were, if you'll look at that, they gave them resources to jump over the Blacks, similar to here, where people could own these businesses. They even, Brazil even paid for the passageway for them to come. So Black Americans need to really recognize that they're coming from a different situation, sometimes a desperate situation. And
this is the reason why we have to get away from this term called people of color, because what you do is, I've said it many times, and everyone in the chat room knows I've said this, and I really appreciate everyone in the chat room for being here. Let me give everybody a clap. Excuse me there. Everybody in the chat room, thank you for being here. We got the Queen that's just come in, Stephen Gilmore, everybody that's in that chat room. This is fantastic. We got a good number of people that have come over, Ray. Oftentimes I wonder, do our people care about stuff like this? And this shows me that our people do. The show that I did a week ago about the homeless situation in New York, and how they treat the migrants versus the Black homeless. And I got a clip on that for you all to remind you of what I did last week. It shows me that our people do care, and they see the value in this information. And I want people to definitely send this video out in your social media. Now, look, one of the solutions, Ray, once again, is what people are saying in the chat room. We need to conduct ourselves the same way. We need to unify, be on code. As we know, being on code is working together for our self-interest and doing exactly what they're doing. So this whole notion that people are coming over here to be our friend, to be in unity with us, is a false notion. And a lot of times our politicians push that. And I know why they do it, because they're trying to get votes. But the reality is, most people don't look at it like that when they come here. They're looking at, I'm going to do for my family. I want a business. We want power. We want control, because they see that that's how America really operates. Let me read something real quick, Ray, because I got another juicy clip that I want to play here.
Okay.
The data also, this is all stuff that's been studied. We're not making any of this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. This is all truth.
Tell the truth.
The data also calls into question whether American is destined, whether America is destined to become a so-called minority majority nation where whites represent a minority of the nation's population. But we might be had by that type of thought, Ray. Right here, Ray. Projections assume that Hispanics or Spanish-speaking people are not white, but if Hispanic or Spanish-speaking people ultimately identify as white, America, then white, will remain the majority for the foreseeable future. That's something that we have to look at. Now, let me play another clip from the professor here from Berkeley, and he did talk about that he has skin in the game, because I think this man said that he remember hearing Malcolm X speak, that he was involved in the civil rights movement himself, and that's why he's speaking out the way he is, because he has some historical context, because he was around during that time seeing some of the things that were happening. And let's go back to his to more of what he was talking about once more. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, another clip by him.
50 Latinos are going to represent a quarter of the population of the United States. In California, Latinos are already 35% of the population. African Americans are about 7% of the population. The disparity is tremendous. So I focused on those numbers initially, and I said, well, look, let's see what's going to happen in the future, because not only we're going to have ground zero in California, but we're going to see it affecting the rest of the United States. And that, in fact, is turning out to be the case. Even in such far-flung places as North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia, Latinos are becoming more and more influential as their numbers increase. Now, you can argue that one of the reasons for this is illegal immigration, and that may well be true. And in fact, to some degree, it is true. But that is a reality that we have to contend with. And Bush's new proposal, which is really nothing more than the Barcelo program revisited, is another indication that there's really an embracing of the Latino population in the United States in a way that it had not historically been embraced. These numbers are going to continue to grow. I then said, okay, well, if we have these numbers, what has been the historical relationship between Latinos and African Americans? Believing that we had this alliance, this rainbow coalition back even as early as the 1980s, late 1970s, I examined Los Angeles and the employment situation in Los Angeles and discovered that, in fact, even there, the conflict existed as early as the 1980s through the 1990s, where Latinos were in conflict with African Americans over municipal employments. As the Latino population grew, they wanted greater representation in the employment area than they have previously. This is a conflict that to some extent is still going on, but was really strong in the 1980s, 1990s. One of the things I discovered in doing the research and in talking to certain African American interviewees was that the argument always was, well, Latinos really are taking advantage of the fact that we were the forefront of the civil rights movement.
Uh-oh, hear this.
Barriers.
Thank you for that super chat, Glorian Murray. Glorian Murray. I appreciate that, sister.
Lunch places. We were the ones that had the dog sicked on us.
Right,
and now
we did.
all this has happened,
Our
and
ancestors.
now the Latinos are taking advantage of it.
It's true.
In response to this, I didn't want to include the entire history of what had happened to Mexican Americans in the South.
Now, what he's about to say here next is he's going to say that there was a law that preceded the Board versus Brown of Education where Latinos were fighting for a regional law to change the discrimination that was happening to them. I believe he said it started in Texas and then it spread it over to California. He claims that it predates Board versus Board of Education, that Board versus Board of Education got national claim because it went to the Supreme Court versus what they did was simply local. But what he needs to understand, and I got to keep it real, is that Black people were talking and fighting for civil rights even before it became officially called civil rights, because we were still here before them in this country, building this country up before other groups came over here and jumped on our coattails. That's the damn truth.
Tell the truth.
Okay, let's continue.
West, particularly Texas, which has a long history of violence towards Mexicans. I wanted to focus on something that was both common to both groups. And so I focused on Brown versus Board of Educations. Now, the largest population, or the larger population, and the African American population believes that Brown versus Board of Education was can be called a sui generis case, a case unto itself. That it was something that sprung largely as a result of African American activities in the South. So what I did is I had become aware of a case called Mendes versus Westminster, which was a precursor to Brown versus Board of Education. And 7 years before Brown versus Board of Education was decided, Mexicans and Puerto Ricans in California had really litigated very much the same issues that were eventually litigated in Brown versus Board of Education. I will tell you the response to this chapter has been phenomenal. People have said, how come we don't know about Mendes versus Westminster? And I have two responses. The first one is that it was not the law of the land. It never reached the U.S. Supreme Court, and therefore it was not a U.S. Supreme Court decision like Brown versus Board of Education. And so as a consequence, it remained a regional or a local case. The other reason, I think, was because it was localized in California. I think those two factors really combined to prevent this case from being the premier case in terminating the separate but equal Plessy v. Ferguson kind of mentality. So I included that chapter simply to point out that Latinos had a role in civil rights movement, a role that preceded the African American movement or was working in conjunction with it, though separately. I then said to myself, okay, well, look,
I disagree a little bit. There were black people that were already fighting in the movement before civil rights became even a phrase, you see. But he's saying that Latinos gave a contribution as it related to a local law. Our laws went federal. So we were able to push the movement a lot further than they could even imagine. But most of the laws that have been set up in this country allow for immigration to take place. So every group that's come in this country, they owe black people a debt of gratitude, because if it was not for the plight of our ancestors, they would not even be able to come over here and immigrate, migrate, whatever we want to call it, or immigrate into the country. So I just want to keep that in mind. And I'm going to play just a little bit of this and stop this.
Since I've now talked about this, let's look at some of what I call the big ticket items. Let's look at the electoral elections that have happened in the year 2001. And clearly one of the ones
I'm going to stop that there, ladies and gentlemen, and come back over here. Ray, what I want to do now, Ray, is let me read one more slider to you, and then I'm going to go into another clip, a whole different clip. There'll be some more. I got some more different clips. So do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I've got some more powerful stuff. Now, let me put this up here. The projection assumes that Hispanics or Spanish-speaking people are not white. But if Hispanic people identify as white, America, then white will remain the majority for the foreseeable future. Now, let me put this up here. I said that earlier before. Here's what I wanted to say, really. Studies have suggested, ladies and gentlemen, that Latinos' identity fades across successful through generations as immigration connections fade away. As immigrants connections fade away, if large numbers of Latino people identify as white in the future, whiteness will expand itself. Now, what does whiteness mean? It's not only a skin color, but it also can be a mentality and so if white people historically, Ray, have been discriminative towards black people, and Spanish speaking people come over, integrate over here and mush into society, and they maintain the same practices because they may see themselves as different than us, or maybe see themselves as white, that practice of racism or anti-black will remain the same. And the ideology, the white racist ideology thinking will just expand itself if people of that ilk come over and maintain that type of thinking. What do you think about that, Ray?
Well, that's exactly correct on that, because this is where the issue that people have to understand, the third class status of dark skin or black people throughout Latin America. So the people that come over here and call black children monkeys, who don't want their daughters to associate or date black men. There was a sister from Puerto Rico or somewhere who was in the Marines, and her mother and father told her, don't darken the race. And she wanted to date a black Marine, and they had issues with that. So these are just cultural things that, and it starts out of the culture. So they're going to vote their interest. Right now, so about 30%, the reason there's a split vote is that 30% of Latinos vote conservative, they voted for Trump. And so even in areas where they could, where you could get some help, they're voting to ally with the people in power. And so that's something that we have to be aware of. And this is not to be angry at anybody. People vote their interest. What we need to do is learn to vote our interest. We are so romanticizing and idealizing this rainbow coalition that has not come to be. It was nice to think of that, but the people that you were trying to ally with never had high regards. And this is the same thing with other people that are immigrating here. If you notice that Kamala Harris, on Kamala Harris's birth certificate, her mother from India put the term Caucasian
That's
as
right.
her race.
That's right.
So the majority of people from India,
Tell the truth.
even if they're dark skinned, identify themselves as Caucasian.
Facts.
And they're coming here with a strong colorism,
Tell the truth.
It's against other Indians, but they're not trying to live in black neighborhoods, even if they own businesses. And thank you for bringing that. That's the Brazilian cabinet you have right now.
Let me do this, Frey.
Okay.
Let me take control of the screen so people can see that, because this is what I'm going to do, Ray. Ray, check that out. Read that, Ray, right there below. Read that, Ray.
Why the Latin Americanization of the United States won't diminish racism or empower blacks.
Now, what do you see right there? Brazilians claim a mixed race, black population of 50%, but 95%. Its national Congress are all European descent. So what you see right there, Ray, on the screen, and everybody on the screen, is what I had said earlier in my monologue before this whole thing started, is that Brazil, 50%, the black population, the mixed race and black population represents 50%, although black people are like something like 80-something percent, but they're talking about the mixed race as well, that 95% of their Congress is European descent. There's nobody in Brazil that is of a black, melanated look, black person that looks like me or even Ray or you in that chat room, are on any leadership position within the country that we call Brazil, where you got all those black folks out there. And isn't it funny, Ray, and it's not really funny, that the only time they want black people to come out in Brazil and be celebrated is when they got our women up there shaking their asses, and they got the men playing the drums and blowing the horns, dancing and wearing the colorful outfits. It seems that's the only time they want to see black faces in these places.
That's correct.
Where they will be ruled by mostly white Brazilians or European descent. What are your thoughts, Ray?
Well, and that's also the tragedy in business. Most of the business class, black home ownership is very black, so are relegated to the favelas. Most do not graduate from high school. They don't have access to capital for businesses. There's a report that I sent you that it would be really timely to play now, that shows how they are basically locked out of the economy in all of these areas.
Right. Let me do this, Ray. Let me do this. There's something else I want to play that you sent me, but let me play this though. Right. Let me say this right here. Places like Brazil and Cuba, where you have mixed race people and interracial marriages are common, ladies and gentlemen, yet discrimination against darker skinned and indigenous people is common there in both Cuba and Brazil. It's common there in many other Latin countries. So think about it. If they've got a big problem like that, and they say that America is becoming, as I put this on the screen, more and more brown. If America is becoming more and more brown because immigrants, the majority of immigrants that are coming here in larger numbers are people from Latin America, South America, Central America, Mexico, what we call Mexico. And if they already have this anti-black sentiment, then what make you think that racism is just going to all of a sudden disappear? Let's use some logic here. And what makes us think that all of a sudden there's this coalition and all of a sudden that we're in this melting pot called people of color? No. Those same people that have those sentiments, they bring their sentiments over here with them. People just don't change themselves overnight. Now, I'm not saying it's all people. Certainly there are people who come from these places who don't get down like that. But we see it for ourselves and how black people, when we have these interactions, we see that racism sparks its head. We know that we have this situation right here. Let me put this up here. Everyone knows about what happened in Los Angeles. And let me take that off the screen right there. We all know what happened in Los Angeles with these council members. And don't think that this is an isolated situation to just Los Angeles, California. Now, Ray, let me go ahead and put something else up here.
Okay, go for it.
That's important. This goes back to Brazil again. Brazil is home to more people of African heritage than any country outside of Africa. But many Brazilians' economics and educational perspectives are still sharpened by colorism. So colorism still continues to rule the day over there. Now, check this out, Ray. I want to find something, and I hope that I can find this very quickly. It was something about Cuba. I think Cuba actually has laws against racism, but it does not protect you from the racism out on the streets. Let me see. Let me see if I can find that. Is this it right here?
Well, let's look at the ruling elite of Cuba. You had that picture of the president. They're talking. They have laws, but the customs are stronger. They don't enforce them.
It was something about that they do have laws on the book against racism, being racial, but when you're out on the streets, those laws are not enforced to protect the people that it should protect who are being impacted by that. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, in Texas, in this country, in Texas already has a majority minority state of Hispanics and blacks who make up 51% of the citizens in Texas. But however, even though you've got that large number of blacks and Hispanics that make up a good majority of the state, the Latinos don't normally get on the same page with us, and we're both doing our own different thing. You just heard earlier the brother in Houston who tried to have a coalition of those that were Spanish speaking, and they turned around and backstabbed him in the back right after he had their backs, but they didn't have his back. Now, let me put this up here. This is very important. Let me read this, Ray. Okay. Yet there is no Hispanic and black coalition within that 51% that I just spoke of in Texas. Present majority to effectively challenge the conservative Republican-controlled state, which passed one of the most restrictive voting bills. Okay, so despite that, you still have Spanish-speaking people who are now on the same page. We're not on the same page with each other. Okay, when it comes to even voting, Hispanics or Spanish-speaking people now constitute 39.3% of Texas residents, and non-Hispanic blacks make up 11.8% of the state's population. Check this out. Racial diversity equals more racial equality is a dangerous myth that we've got to start realizing is just what it is. It's a myth. Racial diversity can function as a cloak device concealing the most powerful forms of white supremacy with fake racial progress. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
There is no Latin and black coalition to fight against racism. If we think that is true, I can sell you a bridge in Brooklyn. This is about a power dynamic, ladies and gentlemen. I spoke of this before. This is about competition for economic and political power. Which one do we want, black folks? Do we want to be popular? Do we want to be personality oriented? Or do we want power, ladies and gentlemen?
Tell the truth.
Right here. The solution for black America. And Ray, I'm going to have you talk about this later on after I show this one clip.
All right.
Because Ray talks about this. The solution for black America is reverse great migration and return to the South. Now, there's some that will go against that. There's some, but Ray, I'm going to have you later on, as we conclude in this show, reinforce why this is a very powerful method. Now, I know you spoke of the fact that black people are concentrated at the most higher numbers in the South, which is why the Spanish-speaking population has a lot of power and control in California and Florida and other places because they've got the numbers. So they are using their numbers, Ray, to dominate. We got to use our numbers the same way. Let me put this up here, another slider. The future of whiteness in America depends on how Latinos are identified. That's very important, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever underestimate white supremacy ability to adapt itself. But we got to adapt ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. There is real competition for economic and political power. And this is what I want to play next, Ray. I'm going to be honest with you, Ray. I'm not a big fan of Ann Coulter, but I have to be honest. She's a conservative, but I got to be honest with this clip that I'm going to play of her. I got to be honest. I think that she was 100%. I never thought I would be agreeing with Ann Coulter. I think she was 100% correct about what she's about to say right here, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an open mind and hear what she's saying. I'm not a fan of her. She has said some other things that I totally did not agree with or did not like. But on this issue, she's 100% right. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen.
Don, I think it's on page 151. You write that various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks.
See, this is essentially the problem, and the Republicans
Could I just say, what have we done to the immigrants? We owe black people something. We have a legacy of slavery. Immigrants haven't even been in.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen to what I'm about to say to you. I'm not a big fan of Ann Coulter. She's a conservative. She said some things in the past that I did not agree with. But on this issue, she is right. Civil rights, if you go back and you look at the 13th Amendment, you look at the 14th Amendment, you look at the 15th Amendment. In those amendments, it was really meant for black people before all these other groups got over here. The America country, this United States, has a debt to pay to black people. It's called reparations. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment didn't say anything about all these other ethnic groups. And matter of fact, we could make a strong argument that we could sue the federal government for violating the Constitution, these provisions in the Constitution that were written and meant for us when they amended and ratified it and amended it for us in mind, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, because we were America's first sin in terms of what is that sin? Slavery, the disenfranchisement, and other groups have hopped on. Now, if you think I'm not telling the truth, wait until I give you some information right after this that will blow your socks off. Let's continue with this, ladies and gentlemen. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
This country.
But you see, most of us are either immigrants or are the descendants
But
of
we ain't immigrants,
we
man.
Understand that we understand, not everybody, there are Native Americans, but we understand in this country, in this country that kind of self-deportation, making things so difficult for immigrants, for undocumented immigrants, that they have to leave, or the DREAM Act, vetoing, threatening to veto the DREAM Act, which is what Romney is.
Tiffany Jackson, we know that white society is not supreme, but for the purpose of what we're doing today, I'm using that term. Now, we use these terms, but we must understand that they are not superior to us. We have to have a mindset to have a solution to get past that bullshit, which is white supremacy. We know that it exists as a system, but we have to figure out a way to break through it. So I agree with you, sisters. You say here, let's move away from the term white supremacy. They are not supreme. It is all about how they oppress and control people based on race. Keep the focus on the misuse of power. Yes, sister, it's a misuse of power.
Tell the truth.
That's right.
Information is power.
I agree with you. Let's continue.
Said. I mean, and again, we have Governor Romney, who is basically taking a position that is anti a large and the fastest growing segment of the electorate.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It was made for Freeman. Mass media group, what's going on? You're absolutely right. Everybody, I need y'all to check out my man Enron's mass media group. He's in the Sacramento area. That's the group that I had on the channel. I know these brothers, and they're fighting. This is the fight for reparations that we got going on in California. We're doing it the right way. That brother has on the foot ground level, him and brother Chris and many others. Make sure y'all subscribe to his channel. I had him on here several times. We'll have them back. It's in fact, 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment were made for freemen. And freemen were black people. Keep that in mind. Do your homework. Do your history. Brother Poppy, thank you for being in the house right now. Let's continue.
I think if Republicans don't do something with immigration, and if Republicans are so far away from Latinos, they're going to lose not only this election, they might lose the White House for generations.
The future.
And Texas to turn
That's why the Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics, because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But could I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Oops. Everybody, I'm sorry I had my mic off. I want to say to you, Ray, I want to hear your thoughts about what Ann Coulter said. This is the first time that I've ever agreed with anything this woman has had to say. Never thought I would agree with anything she had to say, but she made very compelling facts that if you look at the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment, these laws were actually set aside for black people. And we can make an argument that we could sue the federal government for violating what's in the Constitution. Go right ahead, Ray.
Well, she wrote Adios America about the mass immigration, how this has adversely impacted Black Americans, as well as Roy Beck of Numbers USA, who's shown through the case against immigration, as well as the last hired, about how Black Americans have been adversely impacted by mass immigration, legal and illegal. So I support her in saying that. And a lot of the conservatives have been the ones stating that. They understand that not just the enslavement of our ancestors, the 95 years of Jim Crow. A lot of people who are coming here today from different parts of the world, Africa, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from Latin America, the Caribbean. This is just in the last 50 years where they've been able to go to any university that they wanted to go to, reside in any neighborhood. These are things that are new. And then basically locking out by economically and politically disfranchising Black Americans. That's why it's been so difficult for us to move up the ladder. And as soon as we got some breathing room to make some moves, then everybody else comes in claiming to be people of color. This happened to the brothers and sisters in South Africa. When they were getting ready to do things in South Africa, everybody else came from there and pretty much overwhelmed them. And that's why South Africa is still being ruled by a 5 million people white business elite. Even though it's 58 million people, but that white business elite, they control the politicians because they control the wealth. And until we understand the importance of working together and understanding that we have to have our own agenda, then it's going to continue. But right now, they have shown pretty well in the way the Cubans took over Miami and Florida, and especially the hostility against Black, ironically, in California. Ironically, the place where people went to west for the Great Migration, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren don't have a future in California. Not a good future. If you have a child in California that's less than 5 years old, that's not a good place for a Black child to grow up, because they will have maybe 1/10 of the opportunities. Right now, it looks like we're going to be electing a brother as governor of Maryland. And hopefully, with this stealth campaign, we'll pull out getting a sister as the governor of Georgia. Now, everybody doesn't like her politics, but one thing that she won't do, she won't harm people by increasing fundings for prisons, but she's going to increase fundings for education. And we know Black boys need more funding in their education. We need more kids, more invested in those Black boys. So hopefully she'll get through, and we can keep Warnock, Raphael Warnock, in the United States Senate, who is actually the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, is where Dr. King was pastor, and he's also a graduate of Morehouse College. So hopefully, and you're doing an excellent job, Information Man, and just like just like John the Baptist was preparing people for Jesus, you are preparing people to be informed about the next steps that we need to take. And you're doing an excellent job. I'm proud to be associated with you, and you just keep up the excellent work, man. And you will be rewarded by your hard work and your great labor. And are we having sound right now?
Oh, here it goes. It's me. I just have this habit. I keep muting. I was muting myself to let. What I wanted to say is I feel rewarded by the people who are watching this right now in the clouds and watching this in the chat room, because sometimes you sometimes wonder, do our people want to hear about these things? Are we concerned about these things? Or are we only worried about the soap opera stuff? And this proves to me once again, as I've been doing this type of content, that our people do care about this content. This is why you can see by the numbers that people are coming over here, because they feel some kind of way about this issue. Now, Ray, let me say this, brother. I hear what you say about Stacey Abrams and Warnock. A lot of people have their reservations about them. Warnock, I have a little bit of a problem with him because he won't ever answer the questions about reparations. I know Stacey Abrams, there are Black men that are concerned about her because they don't feel that she has spoken to Black male issues. There's a lot of people who see the pros and cons. I'm just a person that overall I see the pros and cons of politicians, either Democrats or Republicans. And I think the most important thing that Black people need to do is that if we put Black candidates in office, or any candidate of any race, we have to make sure that they have our full self-interest, that we're going to get something out of it. And I think that's why people take a little bit of a step back sometimes. But I hear what you're trying to say, brother. I just think that politics right now for Black people I think Black people don't have the same confidence. I'm talking about people on the grassroots level in politics as we as before, maybe because we see that we vote and sometimes we don't get what we hopefully are looking for. But politics is a roll of a dice. And I want to say thank you to Brother Hakeem for giving me the $5 super chat. Let me clap for that and put your name up here.
Listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Let me see, brother. Let me put you up here out of respect for you supporting the program.
Thank you for the super chat.
Ray, but I understand where you're coming from. But I see it from both angles. People who like and don't like, but we got to do something about this. So, Ray, let me do this because, Ray, as we get ready to wrap up the show, I want you to punch it home with why it's important for Black people to consider where we should be migrating and moving to. I know there are people who are Pan-African who say, hey, leave America, go to Africa. Yet we got to keep in mind, we got people that live in Africa who are trying to leave Africa at the thousands that are born there as people are telling us we should move there. Then there are people that say, well, move somewhere else. So there's people who say, nah, I'm not going to move because my family's been here all my life and we're not just going to give up like that. So there's all different opposing ideas about where Black people should go. But I think the idea that we should go where we have the largest concentrated numbers does make sense to me. But with that said, Ray, let's get into I have 2 surprise clips for everybody. And I think this brother will break it down. You know who this man is when you hear his voice. He breaks it down. He will get into the 14th and 13th and 15th Amendments and things of that nature. When you hear this man voice, you see this man, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But with that said, Ray, let me go into this right now. And I want to appreciate everybody in the chat room. Appreciate Ray being here. And let me get this all set up. And let's hear what the brother has to say right now. I will start this off with the most thrilling news report music.
All the people, they're talking about whites. Blacks are property and they're classified as equal to an animal. So when you talk about in the Constitution, look at it and you read it, it says, when you talk about Black folk, it says, those who are in bondage, those who are indebted, those who have specific property, that specific group of people, those who at unhappily lot. They're talking about Black folks. Yeah. And they say, always use coded language. Yeah. And bring it up to date right quick so I can get off this point. I know the time is running out. See, Ronald Reagan told the country the same thing when he came into office in '82. Yeah. See, when I left the White House with President Carter, with his administration, when Reagan came in, one of the first things he did, he called Haldeman into the office and said, when you start talking about Black issues in America, make sure you use coded language. Yeah. He said, never say anything specifically solely
about don't use coded language, never say Black people. Don't we hear politicians saying that today, where they say marginalized people, people of color? Dr. Claude Anderson's breaking it down. But before I move forward, I must do this. Warning, warning, warning. And my man, Real Aaron Collins, thank you for the super chat.
Thank you for the super chat.
Appreciate that. I got another super chat coming from Ray Alexander right now. So let me get in here real quick and put Ray's super chat up here too. Ray Alexander saying, keep telling the truth, Information Man. I appreciate that too, brother.
Thank you for the super chat.
Screwlistic is in the house. What's going on, Hawk? What's going on, man? Mike B is in the house. Thank you for being here, Mike B. He says he predict this was going to happen to us a long time ago. Yeah, but this is the problem, Mike B. We didn't listen to him.
Tell the truth.
We didn't listen to him and implement what Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about. Do you know Dr. Claude Anderson got booted out of Detroit because Black folks in Detroit that were in leadership didn't listen to him when he wanted to build a Black town there? Huh? We don't listen to our damn elders. Peggy Rawson says, oh, I love Dr. Claude Anderson, a man who always shares wisdom. Yes. All right, let's get at it right now. Warning, 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 warning. Federal law, as I take this off of here, ladies and gentlemen, federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyright motion picture, videos, tapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. Yes. This is called fair use, fair use, fair use. And it is allowed for the purpose of criticism, news reporting, teaching, parody, which does not infringe of the copyright under 17 USC 107. And I got to do this for the purpose of it all, ladies and gentlemen. Have to do this because I am part of the BS3 network. Remember, this is the last season of Atlanta. Go check out the show Atlanta. It's on television. If you like that show, I always remember and enjoyed Cat Williams' character on Atlanta. This is the last season. Comes on Thursday night, and here we go.
This episode is sponsored by FX's Atlanta. FX's Atlanta returns for its final season. Earn, Alfred, Darius, and Van are back in their hometown. But the question is, has Atlanta changed or have they? FX's Atlanta, the final season, all new, Thursdays on FX. Stream on Hulu.
All right, let's get back to what we need to be getting back to here. Get on task, and let's let it play all the way through.
They say when you start talking about black issues in America, make sure you use coded language.
Yeah.
He said, never say anything specifically, solely, directly against black. He said, what you do is use a very broad, ambiguous language. He says, and the jigs.
Yeah, welfare queen.
Yeah, the jigs, they'll never know what you're talking about. Use very broad words like minority, poor folk, people of color. That way they never know they ain't gonna get a darn thing out of it. We can hide it. So they use hidden codes to be able in the Constitution to define what whites would get and what immigrants would get and nothing that blacks were gonna get. Okay? That coding is still being used today to talk about diversity, multicultural, people of color.
Yeah.
They're saying, let's pretend that black folk don't exist. And no public policy is going to say specifically for black folk, nothing going to address them. And that's what not one president in the United States, including Obama, has ever done anything specifically and solely.
Can you hear everybody?
Of black folk. Not one politician. As soon as a politician gets in office, even if he's black, first thing you say is that I got to represent all the people. I got to represent everybody. I can't do anything for black folk, but I can do things for Jews, Arabs, Asians, Hispanics, midgets, handicapped, transgenders, anything, but I can never do anything for black folk. So what that does, it freezes black folk in the lowest level of a real life monopoly game.
And so now let's talk about some solutions.
Okay, now the solution, the first thing I would tell black folk to do is understand, declare yourself to be a native people, native blacks. You're the oldest population here, point two. And then and declare your exceptionality. Say that you're entitled to things that have never been given to you, that you're exceptional people and you've been mistreated and maltreated. And say because of that, don't include me in these very broad, ambiguous groups. Get out of affirmative action. I have the dubious honor of writing the first affirmative action plan in the United States in 1970-71 for the state of Florida. I wrote that plan not for minorities, I wrote it for black folk, but it was diluted and watered down and corrupted about 6 or 7 months after I wrote it. It went all over the country, saying it was for affirmative action for all people. And so I want blacks to get out of affirmative action and go for reparations.
I was getting ready to say that very clearly.
That's right.
Tell the truth.
You're saying affirmative action. Get away from that.
Get away from it.
Start talking specifically, succinctly about reparations.
That's right. And put your own self-interest first. Quit trying to be altruistic and trying to represent everybody. Every time there's a march for anybody, you out there marching.
That's one of our problems.
So I said, no, I'm going to put my interest first because and understand that God sent you here black. Blackness is your badge of honor. It's your exceptionality. It's your course to get out of this problem. Then what you do, then you say, I want to also rebuild my own communities. Go back and rebuild your own communities. Rebuild your own, and in those communities, do what you had before the 1960s. Rebuild, you put your own businesses in there. So and right now, we do not have not one single community in America. All we got are black neighborhoods, and everybody else got communities. You cannot, be a competitive group with neighborhoods. You got to have communities. And every group coming to America, the first thing they do in the West Coast, the Japanese, Asian, Arabs, anybody, they say, first thing we're going to do is build communities. We're going to find somebody that look like us, build us a community. So you got Arab towns, Korea towns, China towns, Japan towns, little Saigons, you got little Havanas, little Hialeahs, you got little Italy, you got Greek towns, Pole towns, Hockey towns, any kind, but you never find a black town because we are integrated. And integration means you scattered and lost your power and your resources.
You hear what he said? Integration means you've lost your power and resources. And he said he said Koreatown, Jewish town. But yet when he went to Detroit, you had black people in leadership who just did not want to jive with Dr. Claude Anderson. And that's what I mean, Ray, when we have to have the right type of black politicians, people that are on the same page with us. But other than that, Ray, what do you think about that portion? I have another clip where he breaks down that 13th and 14th Amendment. What do you think? Thoughts about what Dr. Claude Anderson just said there?
I'm in alignment with Dr. Claude Anderson. He's been on time with this, and we really need to heed his call. We need younger millennial and Generation Z taking up the cause, writing their own books, extending what he did in Powernomics, and implementing it, because the time is now. It's crucial that we're aware of what we must do, and that our millennial and Gen Z must take that information and implement policies. And right now, that's the next. We have to lobby, we have to empower ourselves, implement policies on that. So that I do agree with Dr. Anderson.
All right. Now I'm going to play another clip. I'm going to play this another clip by Dr. Anderson that will pretty much reinforce what he just said earlier. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Folks want to do, quote unquote, the human.
Once again, this is about fair use. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyright motion picture, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use, fair use, fair use, and allows for the purpose of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which does not infringe of the copyright under 17 USC 107.
Main thing, and make sure that those that are born here have rights and are not exported, and their parents aren't put out of the country.
Talking about the DACA program.
Are you on the other side of that argument?
Talking about the DACA program.
What I'm saying is that to do that, it is first is unjustifiable. It's illegal and unconstitutional, and it's the worst form of injustice being committed against black folk, because what you're violating is black folks' rights. But see, you cannot, see, the 13th Amendment, let's go back for a second. The 13th Amendment came into existence after the Civil War. Yeah. It says very clearly, Rod, that it mandates that black folk be treated in all manners similar to whites in this nation. Now, but immigration's policies.
Wait a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you in the chat room knew that was in the law when they made changes to the amendments? Because of what happened to black people, we were supposed to get the same treatment and benefits as white society. But they've been in violation of that for many decades, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue. This is what he just said. Let me just move that back just a little bit and continue.
But immigration's policies and bringing in immigrants only negatively impact black folk. It's not impacting anybody else. Black folk are the only injured parties by immigration. Then you go to the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says that black, and remember the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, those things were written for black folk. That black folk must have due process and equal protection under the law. If black folk are the only people being negatively impacted by immigrants, you're violating their 14th Amendment. There should be all kind of lawsuits right now raised by black folk.
See?
And in the Civil Rights Law of 1865.
Do you hear what Dr. Claude Anderson says? We have a right to file a lawsuit when they're giving out all the cookies and all the goodies to other groups, at the same time marginalizing us. You see?
6 said very specifically, Rock, that every level of government is mandated to use all necessary means to lift the badges and incidents of slavery off the shoulders of black folk. Now here you are bringing in all these immigrants over black folk. And here's what you do when you bring them all into black folk. Because you do the same thing they were doing in 1790 when they brought in all these immigrants. You bring in million immigrants over black folk from Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Northern Europe. You brought them in over black folk. When you bring in immigrants, here's what happens. You got black folk that are branded. They don't get any benefits for living in this country because they're branded as being slaves. They get zero benefits. Now, they're not immigrants. Now, watch what's on the other side. Now, when immigrants come in,
you did not know, you know now.
They go past black folk at 200 miles an hour to pass them. That's why in all these cities, in Chocolate City, they do better right here in Chocolate City. Now, they're underneath the immigrants. Immigrants, they come in the country, they get a point over black folk for being an immigrant.
Uh-oh.
Only non-immigrant. 2, They classified, all of them are classified as whites.
Uh-oh.
The Arabs, Asian, Hispanic, they all been reclassified as whites.
Uh-oh.
American
Tell the truth.
back in the 1890s became classified as whites. They get a point. That's the second point. They get over black folk in getting access to resources.
Are we talking truth today?
The third thing they get.
Tell the truth.
They get the benefits for being put into a minority category. They're classified as minorities over black folk. Thirdly, they come in with a culture that they can establish a culture that they can now build businesses and industries and relate back to their homeland. And lastly, what they can do, they also bring in their
Tell the truth
aspect and business opportunities for their people. Black folk get nothing, and they can come in and take and dominate black folk. That's why right now black folk have been buried as an underclass. That's why in this Black History Reader, you look at the second question, it'll show you that the last statistics that came out from the United States Department of Labor says that everybody's over black folk. Black folk have not moved one iota in 150 years.
Ooh, my
They're still
God.
on the bottom, underneath the society and outside of it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Ray, before I move on to the next clip, which I think you're going to find very interesting because it's a clip based on the latest situation. And I want to thank everybody in the chat room. Over here, I'm going to say it again. On the Information Man show, you know I go deeper into the issues. I'm going to make you think. You're going to learn something. We're going to learn together. We're going to educate each other together. You know, when you come to my channel, I do not give you fluff and bull crap, which is why I always ask you to please share the video. Please let people know about my channel, because you know what YouTube does. Whenever you speak truth, they try to suppress your numbers and make your channel look insignificant to make sure that all your notifications don't go. I should have way more people watching me when I go live. But I know for a fact that YouTube only sends out so many notifications and suppress your channel when you're speaking too much damn truth.
Tell the truth.
Ray?
Yes.
What do you think about what, and I think a few people in the chat room had a few things to say to you too, if you want to answer anything they had to say. But Ray, what are your thoughts about what Dr. Claude Anderson just said there on that clip? My last clip of Dr. Claude Anderson. And what's going on, Red Squid X-Files, a great channel. Check them out. Peace to you, my brother. And I think some folks that you may know that were in the chat room had a few things they wanted to say to you, or they had something they wanted to say. If you want to answer anything that they were bringing up, you more fair to go ahead. But go right ahead, Ray.
Well, like I said, I agree with Dr. Anderson in Powernomics. We need millennial and Gen Z writers, public intellectuals to come in and take that to the next level in writing books about this, and also lobbying and implementing programs on that. And for the people in the chat, that we're getting ready to get on to the solution right now. Black Americans are the most empowered, well-off, politically and economically empowered group of people of African descent on the globe.
Okay.
So right now, whatever we do to advance ourselves here will help Black people everywhere.
Okay, well, this is what I'm going to do, Ray. I'm going to take a turn. I was going to have you go into this near the end, but I'm going to have you go into it now since people are saying, what are the solutions? Because I have two other juicy clips that's going to bring us to a crescendo on the show. So let me bring up a very important person that you speak very well of, and he has a book, and you know this book right here, Ray, The Devil You Know, a Black Power Manifesto by Charles M. Blow, New York Times bestseller. Let everybody know about this brother. And we've talked about this on other shows about what Black people should do. And it goes back to what we said before, which is the Spanish-speaking population is using their large numbers to unify, to get political, social, and economic power. Black people who are scattered in places like Los Angeles and scattered throughout this country, we should be doing what, Ray?
We should be relocating strategically to 9 southern states where we have the real possibility of becoming majorities. And so once we get control of state power, whatever the federal government does, the states will implement. So states like Louisiana, Mississippi, something like 40% of their state revenue comes from the federal government, and it's up to the governor and legislature, primarily the governor, to decide what to do with that. Black governors, black legislators in that will implement the type of programs to improve schools. Right now, we have Brother Deion Jackson, who's brought a lot of attention to Jackson State University, where they are, on a winning streak, where they had ESPN Game Day down there. But then he also noted the tragic reality is that Jackson, Mississippi has had a water and sewage. Their sewer system is 100 years old. The governor has neglected to use federal funds to build infrastructure, and they have water crisis. Just 200,000 people relocating to Jackson, throughout the state of Mississippi, 200,000 blacks. Then the current mayor of Jackson could be elected governor of Mississippi and use the funds fairly for our people. You could have black, I believe the first or second black senator in Reconstruction came from Mississippi. So we could have black senators in those red states, but we have to do it strategically. But I do advocate people reading his book. Right now, one of the states, Maryland, which has a significant black population, is on the verge of electing a black governor and a black attorney general. These are very, very powerful positions. The chief law enforcer of the state, and also the governor appoints judges, school educational superintendents, or the statewide education. They have a great power. And so what we have done is we have focused on Congress. We've focused on cities because that's where we had first. But now is the time to focus on acquiring state power, electoral college votes, senators that can go and represent. And this will help protect blacks in other areas. Just having senators throughout that region will help blacks in other parts of the United States not to be abused by other groups. And so we need to read Charles Blow's books, and we need millennials to start putting things together, implementing lobbying programs, writing other books to get this implemented, and going to the historically black colleges in those states, remaining in those states, building, becoming school superintendents, becoming mayors, state legislatures, the directors of the party apparatus, the political party apparatuses, and that's those states, and assume state power. And we can resolve most of the issues that we're talking about in education and criminal justice, as he says, in putting financial resources that come from the federal government to build the type of housing, affordable housing, even through the private sector, that can come through state government. So there's been a lot of neglect in states like Louisiana, Mississippi, and through the South, but it can only be resolved when we have the numbers to take political control. And that's what he advocates in that. And that's Brother Charles Blow.
Talking about Brother Charles Blow. Here's the book again. I'm going to put it up on the screen, everybody. That's the book, The Devil You Know, a Black Power Manifesto. And am I right, Ray, that and you've said this before when we've done other shows in the past, that the reason why it would be smart for us to move to the South, because I know there's some people that will say, well, all over this country, black people, we're bad treated wherever we go. But this is the difference. Can anybody agree in the chat room that we have more power when we have larger numbers, when we come together in those larger numbers to be effective politically, social, and economically? And I'm going to say it again. If we've got the right people in leadership, that's the key word here for right people in leadership, we can make some changes. But it starts with us as individuals. When we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what is it that I can do locally? Because all government is local first. So black people need to get politically involved. And let me remind everyone, it was the great, and they slain this man, Fred Hampton from Chicago, who said that black people need a political education. Even Fred Hampton knew the importance of how that could empower us. Only if we use our numbers in unity, just as other populations are doing to us right now, Ray, right now in real time. Let me show you something, Ray. I did a show last week. I don't know if you had a chance to catch it, where I talked about how migrants who are coming over here from Central America, South America, claiming that they are seeking asylum. They went to Texas, they went to Florida. Both those governors sent them to places like New York and California, Chicago, places that are sanctuary cities, as we call it. And this is what I had to say to everybody a week ago, Ray. I live in California. I don't ever remember them putting on the ballot and giving me the right to vote whether I wanted to be a sanctuary state. Then I talk to people that live in New York. They don't ever remember them putting it on the ballot in New York to vote for it. They never took it to a vote to ask people, do you want this influx of people coming in that will already drain on the current resources for the people that are citizens that live there that are struggling? In New York, homelessness amongst black people is at 57, somewhere between 51, 57%. Black people make up the largest number of those homeless in New York who are hit the hardest, yet the migrants come in, are brought in, are bussed in because you got these two southern states moving them up into the sanctuary cities, which I believe was a big mistake for these areas like New York and California to make themselves a sanctuary city because it drains on the resources. And so the migrants come in and they set them up very nicely, Ray. Oh, they set them up with Xboxes and foosball and nice laundry systems and phone calls that they can make in a temperature controlled tent and what have you, and cots and all that. And yet you have black men that are homeless or in homeless shelters living just not that far from this camp, and they're being treated like God terribly. The migrants get a nice sofas, not more one sofa, but many sofas. They get TVs, flat screens, and the brothers over at the homeless shelter in New York, right near this place on, I think this was Rando's Island or whatever they call it. They're getting a hard plastic chairs, one television only, a nasty looking cafeteria with very poorly cooked mac and cheese, where the migrants are getting food specialized to their palate, and the menu changes daily. And they also have refrigerators in there with drinks and Pepsi Colas and all this other stuff. And the black folks that have been here as citizens that are in homeless shelters, they're getting the low end of the stick. And then you got politicians like Mayor Adams. That's what I mean by having a right politician. Mayor Adams is saying, oh, I don't want to play. Well, let's not talk about who's getting what. Wait a minute, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think that I'm telling no truth here, and if you remember what I did a week ago, and I clipped this especially for this show today, Ray.
Okay.
I want you all to see this right now.
And yes, I remember that show. I got to.
Well, here go a nice clipped reminder. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
We get treated better. They get treated better than us. That's not fair. They treat you wrong like you're lower than nothing.
Gabriel De La Cruz and Lee Brown live in a men's homeless shelter that is about 350 yards as the crow flies from the new tent city for migrants opened by the city this week. But in terms of treatment and quality of life, the centers are poles apart. The pictures tell the tale. Men at the Migrant Center, who are only supposed to be here for 4 days, have a recreation room with multiple TVs, plush couches, telephones for calling home, Xboxes, foosball tables, and games. The recreation room at the homeless shelter, where men stay indefinitely, has a single TV and uncomfortable molded plastic chairs. That's it. The migrants have a cafeteria with condiments on the table, a rotating menu of South American specialties, even bottled water and soft drinks in coolers. There are no condiments on the tables at the shelter. Water comes from a red and yellow jug, and the meals, overcooked mac and cheese, appears to be a staple.
Oh, the food is garbage, man. Forget about it. The food is just garbage, man. It's not cooked well.
Lee Brown says the elevators are always broken.
I'm a diabetic. Right now, I got to walk up 7 flights of stairs.
Both men say Mayor Adams should even the playing field.
He should make it even. We've been here for the longest, and we're getting treated the worst.
I put the question to the mayor.
This is not about comparing those who need assistance and care from the city. We're not doing that. There's always going to be reasons that people are going to feel as though someone else is getting something better than them.
Okay, Ray. I want to see what your thoughts are about that. I clipped that a little bit and shortened it to get it to the point. What are your thoughts, Ray?
See, I do advocate that those Republican governors continue to send those migrants to those sanctuary cities so that they can deal with the problems that are being there. In addition, this is just showing that the ideology that they have, that they're open borders for everyone, except when they have to pay for it. You take care of home first. Charity begins at home. So you throw trash against the people there. You don't help them get jobs, and then new people come in. This has been the example all along. This has been how people come from other places, even right after emancipation, when there was this move to bring Europeans here. They got we were going to get 40 acres and a mule from the Homestead Act. Any white European male could get 160 acres of land in the Midwest, and if they farmed it for 5 years, they would get another 160 acres free, except for the filing fee, which is something like $10. So the point of the matter, even when we were going to get reparations then, we would have only gotten 40 acres a mule and $100, while white Europeans were able to get 160 acres. And then if they farmed that for 5 years, they'd get another 160. That built the wealth throughout the Midwest. Now, we did have one town. They were called the Exodusters that went to Nicodemus, Kansas, and there were the blacks that moved to Oklahoma to start the black towns, but they were never really funded, and they were not incorporated into the legislatures after those territories became states. So what's happening right now, Eric Adams, and yeah, I'd say keep bringing them there. And New York citizens need to force him to upgrade and help those people who are homeless to find shelters, get them the training that they need, and also assist them with getting jobs and stability. Because this is exactly what they are. We have to have laws that allow people to come in legally. Because people are coming from having problems in their home nation, there are ways that we can help them, but you take care of your population first, and then you can help others. These look like able-bodied men who could be on these construction sites or learning IT. They could be learning artificial intelligence. They can be learning the trades, all types of things. But they're sitting up here being neglected. And New York is supposed to be, quote, a liberal, quote, progressive city. And it's straight garbage what they're doing to those brothers and sisters up there.
The problem, though, Ray, this is why I disagree with you a little bit here, because of the fact that they never allowed the people that live in these quote unquote liberal or blue states to be able to take it to a vote and say, do we want to take on the hit of taking in these people? This is the only reason why Texas and Florida did what they did, because they didn't want to take on the responsibility of dealing with people who come over as migrants. So they said, let's throw it on the blue states, the very states that they criticized in the first place, right? Let's throw it on them. But these blue states are under a lot of strain, Ray. And what I did not show you was there's a brother out there named Shams who's been working as a homeless activist, and there's some other deeper problems that are not being addressed in some of these blue states. Mm-hmm. And I just feel that, yeah, you want to give people an opportunity who are coming over here for asylum if they can prove that they're asylum, but we don't know that yet, because I know, Ray, that some of these people who come over here, they lie and say they're running away from oppression when they might be criminals in their own damn country. They might be even working for the cartel, sneaking themselves in the country so that they can do the drug there's a lot of things that go down. I actually have dealt with guys in my work capacity who lied their way into California using these same tactics. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, although you want to be humanitarian, you want to help people, the problem I have is exactly what you just said, is that you want to take care of home first. But what I'm trying to show is that they're not taking care of home very well first. I know it's a problem. And in that video that I did a week ago, they said that private sector and non-private sector organizations have been misappropriating $3 billion that's supposed to go to the homeless problem issues in New York. And you got to be honest, we got to be real that the men that were in that clip that I played, they feel slighted because they didn't even fill up that tent facility, but yet they could use that tent facility to help some of the people that need the help that are on those hard concrete streets. And there's a lot of things that go on in New York with the homeless, with the shelters, where when you complain about the conditions as a homeless person, they'll kick you out. There was a couple that I played. They damn near were falling apart in crying. So Ray, why I see what you're saying. It's just that we have some problems that we have not solved in this country, and it's very difficult to take on large groups of people who you got to prove out why are they really, really here. And I think the mistake that the sanctuary states did is by making themselves a sanctuary state, because it allows for the red states run by Republicans. And by the way, you know, ladies and gentlemen, that the red states have more crime, more calamity going on than the blue states. The myth that we've been told is that the blue states are the states where all the crime and all the some of these red states are in bad shape. I think Alabama's one of the most poorest. We see what they're doing in Jackson State, in Jackson, Mississippi. They won't even help the black folks out there because they want to drive black people out so that white people can take it back over. But that's another story for another day. So Ray, I just think that, yeah, we want to help people, but I just feel like, are we biting off, are we chewing off or eating more than we can swallow when we haven't even addressed the problems that we have here at home? That's all I'm really trying to say. And
I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah. But I'm not saying that we should be a country that turns our back on people too. But this is another flip side to it, Ray. You know as well as I know, Ray, that when it comes to the issue of immigration, that black immigrants get treated poorly. So if you're a black immigrant, you got to get back. If you're a brown and white immigrant, you can stick around. Yeah. We see what happens to the Haitians. I did a video about that. Have y'all forgotten about that video? The Haitians were over there in Mexico, just like the Mexicans. And what'd they do to them? They put them on planes the same or the second or third day and flew them right back to Haiti. The Mexicans come over in droves and they let them come over here and claim asylum, and they get to stay in our system for months and years. The Haitians came over. Did we hear about any Haitians having tents prepared for them with foosball and video games? Did we hear about them being able to get their asylum claims met? And it was the United States that told Haitians to come on over during the time when they had the incident with the earthquakes. And they send them right back. When the Cubans are washed up on the shores of Florida, what do the white Cubans do? They send them right back to Cuba. So the message is very clear. When Africans try to leave Africa and go to places like Spain and they wash up on boats, on rafts, what do the Spanish government do? They send them right back. So it seems to be globally, in America as well, that if you're black and you're an immigrant, you must go back. If you're brown, you can stick around, and if you're white, you're just right.
Well, tell the truth. That's been the case. You're absolutely right on that. And also, if you don't mind, if I can clarify, I agree with you that the reason why I'm saying if they're going to have these sanctuary cities deal with the problems, don't allow other people in areas to deal, because see, they want to push that on people. But the black population, as well as the other population in New York, should stand up for themselves to make sure that their population. You have people that can't go to their jobs because of the homeless problem, or harassed at their jobs. You've been having this crime, people pushing people onto the train tracks and the subway, and most of those people are mentally ill homeless people who are just wandering around when they need facilities and care. And that money could be used to help them so that people can safely get to their jobs.
Yes.
There's been an escalation of rents. See, a lot of those, they used to call them rent controls, a lot of those are ending. Sometimes those rent controlled apartments are 20 years or as long as that one resident is there. But when that person has passed on or moves out, new home or new owners take over that building, they don't have to have rent. I think New York, some rents are $3,000 a month, and that's going to only be for the elite. So we're in harmony on this about
Right.
Eric Adams and these other mayors that are not being conscientious. You help your citizens first, and you want to, and that's even biblical. It
Right.
says that if I don't help my family first, I'm not even a person of the faith. How can I sit up there and not meet the needs
Well-
of my family and then go out and try to help other people before
Right.
my family is housed and fed?
Let me just say this to Stephen Red Clay. Brother, I understand what you're saying. You make a very good point. Stop calling yourself black when your skin is actually brown. You went to school, so you know better. Look, I know more better than you, brother. I know when I look at my skin, I know my skin looks brown, reddish, whatever. Black people come in different shades. Okay, technically, we know that the word black is a social construct, okay? Everything is a social construct. Even if you call yourself we know that indigenous mean that you're indigenous to a particular place. You have lineage to a particular ancestry, a particular landmass. But everything that we know, sir, and everyone listening, is a social construct. Black is a social construct. Everything is a social construct to put you in a box. I'm very aware of these things, sir. I respect what you're saying there, that black is a label. It puts itself in a box. Black people we have gone from being called nigga to Negro to color folks. We've been labeled all sort of things, right? But all of this, even if you call yourself a Moor, that's a social construct. If you call yourself, what everyone wants to say that they are Native American, all this stuff is social constructs. These people people in ancient times didn't even use those concepts. They simply called themselves by a tribal name or a land mass. So even for those of us who want to call ourselves Native American, we're the true Native Americans, that ain't even a real name for the people that were here. Native American is a term that white folks came up with. So you're even using that term that they came up with because they called themselves by their tribe. For example, I have ancestry in the Chickasaw tribe, so I can call myself Chickasaw. Not Native American, not indigenous, no, a Chickasaw, which comes from the region of Arkansas. See? So if we really want to get down to the nitty gritty of this whole thing, how about we call ourselves based on our true tribal ancestry? Because all of this shit is a social construct. Even your name is a social construct. The place that we live in called America is a social construct. All this is social construct. We don't know what was the real name of this place that we call America? What's the real name of South America? Who named it those things? See, everything that we're saying out of our mouth, somebody else gave it to us. I'm just keeping it real. Appreciate your strong words. Ray, let me go to the next video here.
Okay. All right. Go for it.
This one is going to be about these people right here, Ray. I'm sure I'm going to ask you if you are familiar. Ray, are you familiar with the situation that has taken place in California with these three council members? We've got Nori Martinez, who was the president of the council. She was made to step down and she quit altogether. Then we got Gil Chadillo, who in the middle, who is now, I believe, he has stepped down completely. Because if you don't step down completely, then you have to be recalled. Then we got Kevin D. Leon, who's on an apology tour all over Los Angeles right now, who says, you're going to have to recall me because I'm not quitting. But by saying I'm not going to quit, I'm so sorry to black people. I'm so sorry. I just want to tell y'all that I'm for y'all. He's doing all this apology tour stuff right now. Ray, what is your thoughts about this? Because I got a powerful video for y'all to hear.
Yeah, he's got to go. I mean, he may be replaced by somebody who's going to go deeper underground. The tragedy of it was a good thing and a bad thing, is that they were just so open. They were in their meeting talking about people like that. But people, we needed to really understand this. And the people who are not awake, who don't understand, look, they are for their own empowerment. You are black
Tell the truth.
Insignificant. And the Afro-Latinos are considered third-class citizens throughout throughout Latino culture. So if you're not a musician, if you're not a sports player, even if you're a pretty Afro-Latino girl, that's not the base choice. I mean, we need to really understand the dynamics of power. Even when Afro-Latinos, even when immigrants, they do better when they go to Black-controlled cities. When Afro-Latinos go to Atlanta, when Ethiopians, Eritreans, people from Ghana and throughout the world go to Black-controlled cities, they do better. They have access to better education. The Haitians do worse in the Miami area. The Haitians that go to Atlanta do better in life. It's just the fact. They get access to better education. Now, they might want to be around the warmth and all that, but we need to understand them, come as allies, work with us, because some of them are coming out of such desperate situations. They're just trying to survive. But the first and foremost, we need to make sure that our citizens are taken care of first. We're a first world country. We want to live a first world life. Our ancestors put in their lives for us to be here. These other people, they may have had their problems, and they did have their problems where they came from. Respect the fact of what our ancestors did, and respect us for being the survivors of that Black Holocaust.
Okay.
Respect us for that.
Let me do this, Ray, for the sake of time. Let me say peace to Emerald's Family Entertainment 7. Y'all check this brother out. This brother's deep. Inspirational is all get out. Love him. He's powerful. Make sure y'all check out his channel. I've got him on the screen. He's shouting everybody out. He shared out, which I appreciate that. But I need y'all this man is a powerful motivator. I've listened to him before. He's motivated the hell out of me. Got to get him on the channel to interview him, because I need y'all to hear his motivational speaking and the way he can definitely get you going on this channel. And that's the Emerald Family Entertainment 7.
Tell the truth.
We'll be in contact with you about that. And let me give a shout out to a guy from Texas who has been a long-time follower or support. I don't like that word follower. He's been a long-term supporter of the channel, and I appreciate you being here today. Come on back over. It's been a while since you've been over here, brother. Don't be a stranger. And then I got my man Al Yaupo, who has the book out called the novel Melanin, a sci-fi novel. Make sure y'all get that book. I'll probably put that up near the end of the show to do further promotion of his book. Check out his book. Help him out. We got Dr. Jones in the house. Says in the 1980s, sanctuary cities started by President Reagan were supposed to help Central Americans during wartime. Oh, okay. We're learning something here. Democrats have used the local ordinance to change demographics using government grants. Interesting. I didn't know that. I have to look into that, see how true that is. But good points, good information for us to dig our teeth into and to look up. Then we got Jill Chocolate Boutiques. Thank you, sister, for being here. Brother Poppy doing a great job as a moderator. Thank you, my brother. He really agreed with what I had to say, Ray. This brother is one of our Caribbean brothers, and I love him because I got to keep it real. Okay. I'm not happy about how indigenous brothers and sisters in the diaspora of the world, I'm not happy about how they're treated when they're trying to seek the same asylum and opportunity as the so-called brown people or Spanish-speaking people, that they get pushed to the margins away. I don't like that because it shows you what's really going on here. But let me thank Poppy for being here. Empress Goddess, everybody that gave me a super chat, I appreciate that. We got Mahogany's in the house, the lovely lady Mahogany, Roots, MJ. And let me give a shout out to Narratives and Dialogues. Yes. What's going on, brother? And let me give a shout out to Just DeWitt. What's going on? Just DeWitt, thank you for your support. Michael B, thank you. And let me give a shout out to Steven. Look, I got nothing but respect for what you said, Red Clay. Red Clay, keep coming back over to the channel. You made a great point. You kept me on the straight and narrow. We know that. Look, we know that we use the term black. We use that term. That's been a term that black people have been using. Even people who come from other parts of the world will use that term sometimes. We understand it's a social construct. We get it. And then we got my man saying facts. We got Kate Hill is in the house. I can't say the name right, but what's going on? Cartel, what's going on, man? What's going on? Where you been, man? You got the Black Panther thing in there. I like that. Where you been, brother? Where you been? Good to see you over here. Now, Ray, an island Christian who's been supporting me. I recognize you, island Christian. I'm watching you. An island Christian, because you've been a very, very big supporter of the channel, and I've watched you over the several months. You know what I'm going to do, brother? I'm going to give you a mod up. We're going to mod you up. We're going to mod you up on the channel. There we go. All right. And no, my God, we've got a super chat from MC007. $9.99. Thank you.
Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you. And I like the Mandalorian logo you got there. I think that's a Mandalorian on there. Thank you, MC007, giving me a great super sticker. Now, Ray, to get back on point, because I have to end the stream very soon here.
Okay.
I want you to look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy, Kevin, on the city council in LA, is running around pleading with black people to give him another chance. Well, he just recently had an interview with Travis Smiley, who's on a local radio station in LA called KBLA. And Travis Smiley tore into him. Now, he was polite, but Travis Smiley said some things. And this gets back to the subject matter that we're talking about, Ray, today.
Okay.
How when people of other groups get this power, they're not thinking about us in mind. They're coming for us, as Travis Smiley said. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. With all further ado, let's get ready. And let's go.
Information is power.
Racism equals prejudice plus power. And so what we're talking about today is not just you and your colleagues on that tape using racial epithets. We're not talking about pediatric racism. We're not talking about harboring ill will. We're not talking about racial animus. We are talking, Councilman, about a meeting that y'all convened to come for us.
No, sir.
Let me finish. Because I see it differently. Okay. Y'all were coming for us, man. Y'all convened a meeting, and the purpose of that meeting was to do exactly the opposite of what you just said. Nothing wrong with being pro-Latino. I ain't mad at you about that. But y'all were actively engaging in a process to be anti, not just us, but anti everybody else, and anybody but Latinos. Put another way, y'all were plotting. Y'all were plotting against us. This was about the active disenfranchisement and demeaning of black citizens. A meeting that on its surface, to my mind, violated the spirit and the intent of the Voting Rights Act. So when I hear that tape, and when other black folk I know hear that tape, they hear y'all plotting and planning in that meeting to come for black folk. Y'all were coming for us. Y'all shanked us. Y'all shanked us in that meeting. You don't see it that way?
No, I don't see it that way because I see it, the outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Here comes the bullshit.
Black districts. We protected assets within black districts. In fact,
I'm going to cut you off. Because
Kevin D. Leon
doesn't mean that wasn't your intent. Your intent was to come for us. It just turned out that the districts were protected. But what we heard on the tape is what we heard on the tape. Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not
Ladies and gentlemen, we all heard the video or the audio.
That said a few moments ago of a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. It can't be misinterpreted. It can't be done.
Do you understand how black people heard that conversation? That y'all were shanking us.
I understand the hurt and the pain that comes from the conversation and the pain that's felt right now.
Do you further understand, and I say this respectfully, not with any arrogance or hubris, but had it not been for black people and the Civil Rights Act and black people, and y'all couldn't have been in that room as elected officials to plot and plan.
Ooh, did you hear what he said? Wait a minute. Did you hear what Travis Smiley said? If it was not for black people, the civil rights movement, and all the sacrifice that our ancestors put down, he said it, that they wouldn't even be in the damn room. These folks wouldn't even be able to come over here in the first place to sit in a room and plot against us. Go on. You know, I used to not like Travis Smiley at one point in time when I was a Obama fan. And then when him and Cornel West came out and called Obama out, I was like, what are they doing? And then now in retrospect, Travis Smiley and Cornel West was 100% right in their criticism of Obama. I've become a new fan of Travis Smiley.
Gangsters. That's the irony of this. As I said, it violates what you were saying on that tape, violates the absolute spirit of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, without which you couldn't have been there as elected officials. Luis Martinez wouldn't have been president of the city council. You wouldn't have been the leader of the state senate. Were it not for the struggle and the sacrifices of black people, and then for those black people to hear y'all on a tape talking about us in that way, that's a lot to process. That's a lot to swallow, man.
I hear what you're saying, 100%. But I want to tell you, Travis, that was not in my heart, and that's not what happened at the end of the day. And that was not in my heart. I was there to protect my district and the interests of my district, present and future. So
for you, you just saw it as a matter of politics.
I saw it as a matter of politics, right? But at the end of the day, I even had made a very strong suggestion of moving a huge economic asset, LAX specifically, to a black district. At the end of the day, it didn't come to fruition, but I thought that would be a huge economic empowerment instrument, zone, if you will, for the black community, given that there's tens of billions of dollars that are being invested right now in LAX. And I thought that would be a pipeline, an economic pipeline for the expansion of the middle class within the black community.
So as you can see right there, Ray, that's what he was doing. He's on his apology tour. And I think Travis Smiley really made a good point.
Yeah, it sounds like you muted. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. I want to play an quick audio right here.
Yeah, that's called Cape Town.
Yes. I see a lot of little short, dark people.
Yeah, puro Oaxacan Koreans. Not even like Kevin, little ones.
I was like, no, I don't know where these people are from. I was like, I don't know what village they came, how they got here, but.
And so they're wearing shoes.
I get what we have to do, right? Just massage to create districts that benefit you all, right, and the future. Yep. But we got to figure out Mark's seat too. Mm-hmm. You know, that benefits you three.
Is if the African Americans look at this, now that he might or may not be suspended, I don't know what's going to happen. I think if he should be, but anyhow, if he goes away.
You mean resign, not suspended?
No,
you're right. I think there is a difference.
If I may,
if he resigns, hold on. If he resigns and the African Americans look at this as a hostile takeover because he's gone, we all have to figure that shit out because politically they're going to come after.
Yeah, but can I say something right now? And this is what I call the ¿cómo se llama this guy? The movie.
Ray, I want to stop there. That's a little example of their plotting. What's going on Black American television and news and information. Ray, as I get ready to, I got to close out. I got to get ready to close it out. But Ray, give me your statements about what you've heard so far as we get ready to close out.
Well, it just shows the depth of people will vote for their own interest in empowerment. And that's exactly what we need to do. We are so plural. We let anybody into our spaces and we want to share everything and even things that we don't have. This didn't have to happen that way. When you're a minority, you want to have a political, whites are a minority in Los Angeles, and they're still running things. They're a minority in a lot of, globally they are a minority and run things. So the point of the matter is that we must understand that our interest entail our political empowerment as well as our economic empowerment and looking out for the future of our children and coming grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We have to think in those terms. And that's exactly what they were talking about. They were talking about, there was a black city councilman that were resigning, and they were trying to make sure that a Latin or Hispanic council person gets that seat. And the point of the matter is the benefits that blacks had in Los Angeles are completely over. There's not a future for them there. They're hanging on by a thread. It's expensive, and there's no political party. Now, for the few people, Bel Air, Beverly Hills, Hollywood, that's a totally different, small 1% blacks who've been there living. That's not most Angelenos. Most black Angelenos are not living that well. And so they really need to be conscious of how poorly the school systems are not educating their children, how there are lack of basic jobs, not just the high-level professional jobs. When kids are in middle school and high school, those first-level jobs at retail stores tend to not go to us. And that's important for a kid to have that kind of money to get their school books, to get their gear. But if they relocate strategically with their talents and skills, and this has been done, people do that all the time. And so we need to be conscientious of that. They are who they are. And what we need to understand that humans will work in their own best interest, and we need to do the same thing. So they have their own interest that does not include us. For Black Latinos who are content to be second and third class citizens under what we would say Hispanic or Latino supremacy, that's their business. But for Black Americans who have contributed so much to this nation, who have the ability to establish and reestablish power and power bases, we should go ahead and do the reverse Great Migration in the 9 southern states that Charles Blow has talked about. And we need some millennial brothers and sisters to get on it by also talking about this, writing articles about this, doing, having YouTube channels, having the things that we need to do. We need to see them on that because it's their future that's really important. They need to have power and they need to be able to control their destiny. And that's where I am. And I think the young brother who may be governor of Maryland, I think he's just 44 years old. So he's one, I don't know if he just missed the millennial, but he's close to being a millennial. And so I hope that he gets that seat. That will do a lot of great things for us to have him in a power position like that. And I think he'll be able to do a lot in that position for us.
Okay, Ray, due to family commitments, I'm going to have to end the program, but I thank you for coming on board.
You're welcome.
Everybody that's here, thank you. I don't mean to end the show abruptly like this, but Ray, we're going to do it again. Keep contacting me with other topics as always, brother. This was another classic show. I think this is one of our better ones. They just keep getting better. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody out there in the chat room that's been watching. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to end the program right now. I will put up a picture of Brother Ayalpo's book that I want you all to go out and get. That will be near the end of the presentation. But Ray, you take care of yourself. We'll be talking soon. And I think people have gotten a lot out of this today. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you as well. Have a great day as well. Enjoy being a part of this excellent show.
I appreciate you too, as always, brother. We'll do it again. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's Ray Alexander. And with the sake of time, I've got to step out. I've got some family commitments. So you all take care of yourself. I need y'all to get the Ayalpo Melanin novel, a sci-fi novel. Right now, you can get this on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. You can get the Oyapo Melanin novel right now on Kindle and come in an audiobook very soon. Get his book by Oyapo Melanin. In a disastrous industrial disasters on the planet, you cannot survive without having a darker pigment, Melanin, the fictional novel by Oyapo. Today. I really appreciate you all. Share the video in your social media, share it with your friends and family. I think there's a lot that people can get out of this stream today. Thank you again.
Tell the truth.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Information is power. Tell the truth. Information is power. Information is power. Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Tell the truth.